Well, the New World Order, as you describe it, is based on communications to some considerable degree.
Yeah.
And what you've just outlined implies a great deal of media savvy or understanding about how messages are transmitted and how audiences are created for those messages. In your view, is that really the conscious strategy of bin Laden and al-Qaeda, or did they stumble into it? Did they know what they were doing, or was the moment somehow just right and they came to it?
Honestly, I don't know which. I think it may have been both. I think that there was, certainly from Ayman Zawahiri, when you look at the way in which he projected himself over time before, and after all, he's older than bin Laden, before he and bin Laden became allies and then as it were, co-owners of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, there was a sense in which he realized that it's not only what you do, it's how you project yourself that determines the effect of your actions. So in other words, what's often been said, terror isn't violence, terror is violence broadcast. If you simply have violence, it's lost. But if you have violence that's broadcast, telecast, shown on a world stage, it becomes terror. So there's a certain sense in which I think Zawahiri got it. No one has ever convinced me that bin Laden understood this implicitly or he understood it by any process of his own investigation. But what is really clear is that after 1996, and this is, by the way, he's not even 40 years old yet. He's born in 57, roughly. So he's under 40 years of age. He's projecting himself as an autodidact, religious, revolutionary activist representing the whole Muslim world. Had it not been for the possibility of a satellite TV network in Arabic to 55 million viewers, where not everybody believed him, but everybody got to hear him and see him, the possibility of this emerged. So I think I would argue that it was at least coincidence that the world changed in such a way that this media option was available and that he became, as it were, a global jihadist. I would argue the first global jihadist because of modern media and free satellite television.
Well, the ultimate exploitation of that media presence is on September 11th with these brutal and yet incredibly visual attacks on the United States. In the later messages that you come to after 2001, to what extent is this notion of the media as a mobilizing force consciously expressed in bin Laden's thinking?
In my view, it's what brings together and elevates all these messages from just simply haphazard, random occurrences to something which is a package that I try to put between two covers in this book, Messages to the World. But I think one of the things that needs to be said is that bin Laden already had a tape, the one you mentioned, the message of saying the jihad is against not just Arab rulers and not just other outsiders, but it's against the entire pagan world, all the people who are jahilis, what he calls ignorant and opposed to Islam. That notion of radical jihad was there in that first message, which was rebroadcast after 11 September. Bin Laden's own statement about what he meant for 11 September and whether he himself condoned it as opposed to actually directing it, all that comes out in later messages. I think the key, if I had to pick just one out of the more than 23 here, the one that really captures his ability to say the message is only as good as the medium. I think Marshall McLuhan would agree. The message is only as good as the medium is October 7th, 2001. That is the day when President Bush ordered the invasion of Afghanistan and justified it by a speech on television. Within a matter of an hour, there was a counter message going out in Al Jazeera from bin Laden saying, you have done this, this is what we're going to do to you. And everyone said, how could he do it so fast? He had already marked the measure of possibilities and in some sense intuited, as I think many of us did, that there would be an attack. The response to 11 September would be not simply a rebuke, would not be a criminal action, treated as a criminal action which would involve seeking out the perpetrators, but rather a state-to-state war, the declaration of war by the United States on the Taliban in Afghanistan. Bin Laden was ready for it.